What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It's the return. Yes, we are back once again this week. This is Elevated Vibes Radio. I'm your boy Abdul Rashid, along with Mr. Timothy Evans and our very, very special guest. We are honored to have him sitting along with us. We have Mr. Shaka Barak, President, President of the Honorable Marcus Garvey Institute. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir.
All right, all right.
Honored to be here too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm glad. We're glad to be blessed with your presence. Now, everybody, before we really get into everything, this is the tail end of Black History Month. All right. Now, through the TV and everything else, you hear a lot of great people. You do. You really do. But a lot of people got their inspiration from the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. And being here with our guest, and that's why it's so great to be here with our guest right now. So he can how can I say, give you some more understanding of this man. Because many times, even those greats that you have heard about over and over again through different parts, Black History Month or whatsoever. I'm speaking of Dr. King. I'm speaking of, Malcolm X. I'm speaking of Haile Selassie. Everybody spoke about Marcus Garvey. And so I am honored to hand this over to you, sir, so that you could bring some information about yourself, possibly also the UNIA, Marcus Garvey, and many other things that he has done.
Well, thank you, Brother Abdul and Brother Tim. Um, I first became aware of the Honorable Marcus Garvey around 1975. And I had come out of the military, Marine Corps, 71 to 74. I didn't go into Vietnam, but I was in the era. And I was looking for something that could contain my militancy. So I searched around and I eventually found a man who had been a student of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. His name is Charles L. James. And so here I had an opportunity to meet someone who actually worked with the Honorable Marcus Garvey. So I joined the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. And as I attended the meetings, I saw that there was a ritual, there was a constitution, there were laws and rules, and I learned them as fast as I could. So I was able to excel into the minor leadership roles as a youngster, coming out of the military and looking for a home. And so this man that we're here to talk about, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, I consider the greatest Black leader that we ever had. And if anyone says that, Timothy, we should make them prove it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's prove it. Marcus Garvey was the man who was able to build the first and largest mass movement. So when you think about our people coming out of captivity, coming out of being enslaved in 1865, there were no mass movements. I mean, Booker T was doing what he could do. Du Bois was talking his stuff, but there were no mass movements. And so the Honorable Marcus Garvey built the first and the largest mass movement up until today. And so what he did was he put together a program that addressed the needs of our people. He built a chain of grocery stores because we have to purchase food,
Yes.
chain of restaurants,
Yes.
so we have to eat.
Right.
He built factories because we have to wear clothes.
That's true.
And so we made our clothes, we made our shoes, we made our suits, we made our uniforms. The Honorable Marcus Garvey, even to help improve our pride in ourselves, develop baby dolls, Black baby dolls on a mass scale for our babies to play with. And so Marcus Garvey covered every base that there was. But what he found was that the Africans or people of African descent that were living in China were not in New York. Those who lived in South and Central America were
Yes.
not in New York. So he had to develop a organization that would reach out to Black people around the world. So he held an international convention, the first of its kind, where every Black group, social group, economic group, a social club, political group, were invited to Madison Square Gardens. Now, this was the biggest meeting place on the planet.
Yes.
It held 25,000. He packed it to the rafters and brought these different parts of our community together to ask the question, what are the problems that exist in China for the Black man and woman? In Australia for the Black man and woman, in Alabama, Mississippi, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Kenya, and in Europe, in Paris, in France. What are the problems? And they sat down, he sat them down for 31 days to discuss what those problems were. Now that you know what the problems are, you can work on solutions.
That's
So
so
Marcus
true.
Garvey was driven by coming up with the solutions for our people. So that international convention lasted a whole month. It wasn't a weekend chicken fry.
Right.
You know, it was a whole month of August where they were constantly deliberating on what strategies were needed. They had the complaints, but they needed the solutions. They needed the demands that they were going to place before the rest of the world. And one of the things that came out of that 31-day convention was this: the red, black, and green flag.
Yes.
This icon, it represents, the red stands for the blood that flows through our veins. The black stands for the Black man, woman, and child, and the dignity of the African personality. And the green stands for the green fields of Mother Africa. That was, I say it like that because it was taught to me like that, because when the Honorable Marcus Garvey taught his students, they taught their students what he had taught them. And so the flag came out of that. But another thing came out, and that was that there was a demand for Black history to be taught to our children to their benefit, because Carter G. Woodson wasn't the only one that saw that whenever they talked about the history of the Black man and the Black woman, they said he hadn't accomplished anything.
Yes.
She hadn't contributed anything to civilization. When we dug the history up, what did we find? It was to the contrary, right?
Right.
Because we had contributed to art and science and literature and mathematics, and they stole our philosophy. They stole our history from us and then made it their own. And so Marcus Garvey in 1920 said that we had to teach history to our children to their benefit. But in 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson said, let's make sure we have Negro History Week. And Negro History Week, so that we could study our history, not just the history of Africans in America, but the history of the African world. And so that fortunately went from a week to a month. So all month. But as you brothers know,
Yes, sir.
it's not just a month long to try to cover our history.
That's right.
We
all
have to
year.
have it all year
All
long.
year.
Oh,
Yes.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you this, because you just like you spoke about how Carter G. Woodson was kind of at odds with him. All right. But also you had Brother Du Bois and I forget the other name, that were kind of at odds with him as well. Okay. And what coming on the fact that, okay, we'll go through the odds with him and Brother Du Bois, you know, he wanted to help build the common man, while Brother Du Bois wanted to help out those who were more, going to college, more of the elite and all that. Why could they not eventually find a middle ground? Why do you think?
Well, first of all, Carter G. Woodson didn't have a problem with Marcus Garvey.
Uh-huh.
The Honorable Marcus Garvey had the newspaper called the Negro World. Carter G. Woodson knew that this was the paper that had the largest circulation of any black paper on the planet.
Yes.
And he wanted to write for that paper. So he asked the Honorable Marcus Garvey, could he write for the paper? Now, you've heard of the book, The Miseducation of the Negro?
Yes.
Well, many of those articles in that book were first published in the Negro World newspaper. And so how does Carter G. Woodson connect with Marcus Garvey? Because when you say the miseducation of the Negro, you have to know, well, what is the education of the Negro? You have to, see the difference. And so Carter G. Woodson was able to write about the miseducation because he saw what an educated black man and woman would do because of the example of the UNIA and the Honorable Marcus Garvey. So he later took those articles that he wrote in the Negro World and put them into the book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Now, in terms of W.B. Du Bois, I mean, it's like, here was a man who, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, that saw what Booker T. Washington had done and said to Booker T., I want to do something similar to what you're doing for our people in Jamaica. And so Booker T said, come to the United States. I'm going to help you. I'm going to introduce you to some of my associates so that you can do what we're doing here in Jamaica. But Booker T died before the Honorable Marcus Garvey was able to come to America. So he came to America and he went throughout 38 states. He took a whole year to travel through the country to determine, was there a comprehensive program that spoke to the needs of our people? And you're absolutely right. Not only were some people talking about there should be this talented 10th that is supposed to lead the masses of people, but most of them were just sitting on their laurels. Whatever they had achieved in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they were resting there as if there was no more work to be done. And so they didn't have a comprehensive program to speak to the needs of our people. So they weren't building under Du Bois or the talented 10th theory, grocery stores and restaurants and schools and shipping lines. They weren't doing those kind of things. And so what happened? Marcus Garvey became a threat to those lazy Negroes. What does that mean? That means that when people stopped going to other people's restaurants and start eating in the UNIA's restaurants, they became a threat to those people. When they started shopping in the UNIA's grocery stores, they became a threat. When they started attending the mass meetings of the UNIA twice a week, in the thousands, they became a threat to those who had cornered them to come to their churches and come to their institutions. When they started reading the Negro World, which was published in Spanish, French, and English. So if you were colonized by any the French or the Spanish or the English, you could read the paper. And if you couldn't read, there were people who would take the message of Marcus Garvey, commit it to memory, and then take it into the bush and repeat that message. So the Honorable Marcus Garvey had a far more comprehensive program than anybody at that time could really even imagine. I mean, there had been nothing like that. There wasn't a leader like that. I mean, here was Marcus Garvey, a man who could box, a man who could swim, a man who could run. I mean, and he was fearless. Why? Because his father had taught him to never back down. His father had taught him to be assertive, to be have willpower, and his mother taught him the love of God. And so, with the love of God and the belief in self, how can you lose? And so the Honorable Marcus Garvey even at one point said, I'll challenge anybody that let's take a year and take away all the trappings of materialism. You get rid of all your stuff, I'll get rid of all my stuff, and then let's go at it. I'll make you look like a bum in a year. And he could, because he could raise $100,000 a year just off of his speaking. He had the type of voice, he could throw it around corners. His oratory was exceptional. Even J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI said, man, that guy can speak, because he could. How? Because he practiced. Everything that he was good at, it was because he practiced, and he was determined to be as successful as he possibly can. So, my brothers, jealousy is a terrible thing, especially when it's practiced by intellectuals. And then when they figured out that they could not stop the Honorable Marcus Garvey, they went to the white man. They always go to the white man and said, bad things about Marcus Garvey, lied on the arm of Marcus Garvey. But the other thing was white people saw the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation. Can I show your audience a picture of
Oh,
that?
yes, please do. Because I was going to ask you a couple of questions about them as well.
All right, we're going to get started then. Can you all see this ship? So what the arm of Marcus Garvey knew and what we know today is that there are products that exist on in South and Central America and on the continent of Africa. And if you could get those products and bring those, like wood and copper tin, gold, nickel, if you can bring that to your factories in the United States, you could put your people to work. And so the Black Star Line was an opportunity to do trade with our brothers and sisters, also to do travel, and to compete with the other shipping companies in the world. This became a threat. So whether our people are eating in their own grocery stores or their own shopping in their own restaurants or building ships for international trade or reading a newspaper that's published by them, it is a threat to those who already have been taking advantage of our people and selling to our people and getting our people to buy their products. So the Black Star Line created some competition. So what did they say? They said, let's go to the Attorney General and get their help in terms of what was called a Marcus Garvey Must Go campaign. And they, again, they lied on him. They framed him. They indicted him. And amazingly, he went to court. And when he got to court, he found out that his lawyer had sold him out, right? So he had to defend himself.
Wow. Yes.
Now, imagine all of these charges, all of these counts, and then he beat them.
Yes.
Without his lawyer. He beat them, right? So the jury's out. They're out for a long time, right? Trying to make a decision on what they're going to do, whether they're going to convict this black man, all these white folks, are they going to convict him? And they took so long, the judge called them back, said, wait a minute. You all are taking too long. Listen, if we have to try him again, we got the expense of the court. I'm trying to go on vacation. Y'all don't need to get him on everything, just one thing. And he sent them back out in a few hours. They came back with a guilty verdict on one flimsy thing that was of no consequence. There was no evidence, none of that, because unfortunately, there's a lot of black men and women who get locked up, and there is no reason for them to be incarcerated. I mean, how many times have we looked at a brother after 20, 30 years walking out of the prison, but the reason he's walking out because the evidence showed that he had never done the crime. So just recently, January the 19th, President Joseph Biden, just before he left office, he gave Marcus Garvey a posthumous pardon.
Yes.
That means that the evidence was in that he was innocent. He was wrongly convicted and wrongly imprisoned. And so this article here in the Citizen newspaper speaks to that. And all over the world, there's excitement because this pardon took place. And some of us have been out there working to get petitions signed and so forth. And then boom, Biden, before he leaves office, pardons Marcus Garvey. So I'm writing about it in the Chicago Crusader, the Citizen, Marcus Garvey's son, who has been a pioneer to get his father pardoned, is sitting right now in Howard University with lawyers and scholars and other activists celebrating this pardon and then asking what next, because the real beneficiaries of the pardon will be the children. But we have to create the literature. We have to create the stories. We have to create the plays so that the children can learn about Marcus Garvey. And that's one of the things that we're doing now. So all of those who fought against the arm of Marcus Garvey, we're not mad. We love all of our people. He loved all of his people, and it didn't impede the success. What do I mean? There were only 2 independent nations on the continent of Africa when Marcus Garvey came along. 54 now.
Yes.
And we talk about standing on the shoulders of those of Marcus Garvey.
Right.
So Jomo Kenyatta, the first president of Kenya, considered himself a Garveyite. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first president of Nigeria, considered himself a Garveyite. I mean, these were people that saw him, that were around him during that time. Uh, 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 Brother of the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah,
Nkrumah, yes.
he just studied this book. I wanted to bring this book and show it to you. The Philosophy and Opinions of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. He never met the Honorable Marcus Garvey, but he followed this, and he said that he looked for a formula to address the colonial question and imperial question on the continent of Africa, and he studied philosophy. So he studied Hegel and Kant and Mazzini and all of them. He said, but the one that did more to fire his enthusiasm was the Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. So there is no movement that has existed in modern times that has not benefited from the teachings of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. There are so many great individuals that you know about. I'm sure Sister Shirley Chisholm.
Yes.
Her parents were followers of Marcus Garvey. El Haj Malik El Shabazz,
Right.
Malcolm X. Both his mother and father were followers of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. They served as officers inside of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. And some of you who study Malcolm, you may remember him writing that he thinks that his father must have loved him best because it was only him that he used to take to the UNIA meetings. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad caught up with Malcolm many years later, what had been instilled in Malcolm when he was a child came forth. And then when he was able to write about it, he acknowledged that all the liberation movements you see taking place on the continent of Africa, you know that Marcus Garvey is alive.
So very true. So very true. You got any questions, Tim?
Yeah, I got a ton of questions.
Go ahead,
I
brother.
got a ton of questions.
Because I got a few myself, but I want you to go ahead and get yours in, brother.
Okay, so I had a question about his philosophy about politics, right? Would you consider him a capitalist, a socialist? Because most of the African countries right now, I think, are leaning towards socialism. Not communism, but socialism, like England or France or something like that. What would you consider his politics?
Okay, because when you mention capitalism, it's an economic system.
It is,
right?
yeah.
And socialism is an economic system.
Yeah.
So if we want to talk about the politics of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, he said, never lose the empire urge. Now imagine what that means. That there were 400 million Africans and people of African descent during that time. It was estimated by Edward Wilmot Blyden, 400 million. So everybody was saying 400 million during the 1920s. Today is 1.7 billion of us. And so the idea of empire means that if Black people all over the world hook up and do business with each other and trade with each other and work to establish self-help and self-reliance, that would work to establish sovereignty, then we could eventually have not only the means by which we could take care of ourselves and feed ourselves and clothe ourselves and house ourselves, but we would be able to be a power in the world, because Africa is the richest continent on the planet. It still is.
Yes.
They stole a lot, but they didn't steal it all.
Right.
So
exactly.
if we tap into the resources on the continent of Africa, we could and use it with the combined intellect of the African at home and abroad, use those resources for our benefit, we would improve the economic status of the race 20 times what it is today. Mm-hmm. And so that ideal is so far ahead of the thinking of the average person until it's a wonder that he said that we wanted to establish a universal confraternity among the race. That means organize every Black person, man, woman, and child in the world inside of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And guess what? Before he died, 11 million had come inside. And we're just trying to continue that work today. So cooperative economics, that's a better system than either communism or capitalism. Cooperative economics. So if you were interested in the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation, you could buy stock.
Yes.
And there was a limit on how much you could buy so that the big guys wouldn't come in there and gobble it all up, right?
Right.
So 200 shares was the limit at $5 a share.
Okay.
Okay, let me ask you this, and it's just piggybacking a little bit off what you were.
We say tofu backing. We don't be piggybacking. We ain't piggybacking.
I got you.
All
I
right.
got you. No problem. But as you said, you know, the empire mind of us being together and growing. Okay, right now, today, even us as those of African descent are so far apart sometimes because we are all in our own subgroups. You know, and we shouldn't be, but we are. You know, how do you suggest that we come back to that level where he was building it to, where that, what did you just say, it was 11 million?
Before he died,
Yeah,
yes,
before he
11
died.
million had
Yeah,
come in.
how do we get back to that point where that we can stand, even though we all got our differences, and hey, we all human, we're gonna have some type of difference. How do we get back to that point, though?
Well, Abdul Marcus Garvey said in this book, chapter 1, page 1, paragraph 1, that history is the guidepost by which we are directed into the true course of life. The history of a race, the history of a nation, the history of a movement is the guidepost of that race's destiny, that nation's destiny, that movement's destiny. What you do today that is worthwhile will inspire others at some future time. So we need the history of the greatest movement that there ever was. If you were a military man and you wanted to develop a strategy to conquer or to protect yourself, you would have to study men like Napoleon. You would have to study Shaka Zulu.
Right.
You would have to study the great generals,
Sun Tzu.
Hannibal's. I mean,
Yeah.
to get the strategies that you need in order to win a war.
Right.
So if you want to be able to do what the Honorable Marcus Garvey has done, you have to study him. And unfortunately, Brother Timothy and Brother Abdul, they don't teach Marcus Garvey in the schools. We didn't get Marcus Garvey. We got King. We got Harriet Tubman. We got,
Yes, sir.
Frederick. But we
Right.
didn't get Garvey. And so we know clearly that that's part of the problem. Because if you don't understand Marcus Garvey, like we had a mayor one time, Harold Washington, over the city of Chicago.
Yes,
And
sir.
I asked him on the radio station WVON, I said, sir, do you know anything about Marcus Garvey? And he said, any black man that does not know who Marcus Garvey is, isn't fit to be a leader of his people. That's what the first black mayor of the city of Chicago said. And we have a proclamation from the first black mayor declaring, Harold Washington, declaring that all the citizens of the city of Chicago are to come together on August the 17th and celebrate his birthday.
All right. All right.
And the second one, Gene Sawyer,
yes,
gave us a proclamation as well. Now, we haven't gotten one from Lightfoot, and we haven't gotten one from Brandon yet. But Brandon, we're going to ask for that proclamation declaring Marcus Garvey's birthday of significance, because all of us are in awe right now because of this pardon that has taken place. It's like unbelievable. I mean, I talk to friends and associates. They're like, man, I remember when we were out there getting those signatures on the petitions, because they wanted you to get 100,000 signatures. You know what I'm saying? That was really challenging for the unknown to a lot of our people, right? They don't know who Marcus Garvey was, but some did, and some were very supportive of us. But now we have it, and now we have to go and teach our people. So when we can get on the same page, Brother Abdul, in terms of our understanding of strategies that work, then we can move forward. But in the confusion of us wanting to go different ways, and most of those ways are the wrong ways, or us feeling that we have to depend on white people to lead us and guide us and give us the direction that we should go in, and nothing other than what they say is acceptable should we in fact pursue. If we keep that attitude up, we'll never get out of this thing. And so the key is expose our children to Garveyism. I'll give you one example of what I just did today.
Okay.
I went by Marcus Garvey's elementary school, right? And I said, listen, I got an article in this citizen newspaper, and I want to distribute copies of this paper. So I called the citizen. I said, I need some papers. I need, 50 papers, and no problem. So when I took the papers there to the school, they were so excited. They stuffed the mailboxes of the teachers and the staff with this paper that you all have now, right?
All right.
Mhm.
All right.
And guess what? They're celebrating Black History tomorrow.
Okay.
And the teachers would have had this paper in their mailboxes before tonight, and
Yeah,
they'll
of course.
come prepared tomorrow to
Right.
be able to
They
talk
already
about
had
the
a
great
great
man that
lesson plan
their
about 'em.
school is named after.
Yes.
And yes, we'll sit down and develop strategies and whatnot. Of course, we have this wonderful exhibit
Yes.
that we've taken to that school before, and we'll continue to do more of that. So I think that's the solution is history. History is so important, and there are some folks who are trying to do away with it. But even if we have to go out and on the corners and teach history, in the alleys and teach history to our young people, walk up and down the block teaching history, then we will. But the important thing is, what part of our history do we want to teach? Let's teach the stuff that has been hidden and denied to our people, because this is the greatest history that there is, because it's linked to so many other leaders and so many other movements that benefited from this. Let us benefit from it as well.
Understandable. Understand. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay. So I'm kind of confused on if we do follow the roadmap of Marcus Garvey, why haven't it been like done before now? You know what I mean? I mean, the money is there, the will is definitely there. Is it hard to make connections with other African countries? Do they not want to cooperate with us, or what do you think the issue is?
Well, you're right. The money is there. As Kwame Ture used to say, Africans are not poor. We're just poorly organized.
Mm.
We have the money. That's
I
why other
definitely have
people
the
come
money.
into our community and
Right.
set up shop, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So here's the challenge. The Black Print or Blueprint. This is the Constitution of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. It's seldom seen by Africans and people of African descent. This is what the movement was built on. And until we can figure out a way to put this in the hands of men and women who want to organize to build that empire, who want to organize to be able to address the social ills, the political ills, the economic ills that exist in our community, until we do that, we're going to continue to wander in darkness. And so this is the key. And so our job as the Universal Negro Improvement Association is to expose as many people to this as possible. But look at this. Look at how many pages that is.
Yes.
This is a constitution. We are not willing sometimes to study the material like we should. I mean, government is politics is the science of government. And unless you are really aspiring to build a government, you kind of stay away from laws and rules that govern governments. And so you want to take the easy way out, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. That ain't going to get it.
Right.
These little simple fraternities, sororities, that ain't going to get it. So you got to get into the Constitution. Then there are books. Look at these. Look how many pages that is.
Yes.
The average African American, he's got to really be encouraged to be able to really sift through these many pages. And then who's going to sit down with him with their copy so we can exchange notes? Oh, yeah, man, look at this page right here. Look at this. Look at this. And who's going to do that with our children? Hey, baby boy, take a look at this.
Right.
Read that.
Right.
We're not doing
Exactly.
that when it comes to anything that we have that we want to pass on to our children. We got to stop that and begin to engage them with the history so that they can walk around like we walk around as adults, knowing who they are.
Exactly.
They feel very uncomfortable not knowing their history. And other people know our history better than we do. And they certainly know their own history.
That's true. That's absolutely
You're not going to
true.
find a Hindu that doesn't know the history of the Hindus. Why? Because it's mandatory. You can get Black history if you want it or not. I mean, if you want it, but it's not mandatory. Some things have to be mandatory, even in terms of morals, in terms of how we deal with each other. It's got to be mandatory that when you are in the African community, you conduct yourself a certain way. And we have to give the guidelines as to how we should interact with each other. How do we promote the spirit of pride and love? How do we promote the spirit of pride and who we are, what we've done, and what we're doing and what we're going to do? How do we promote the spirit of love? I mean, because the game of divide and conquer is alive and well in our community.
That's so very true.
And so you got the North hating the South and the West hating the East and the light skin hating the dark. I mean, we got all kinds of the male against the female. We
That's
got
exactly
all
what I meant
kinds
by the
of
subgroups.
things that are in there that are designed to divide us. And so we've got to work to bring about unity. And since this is the highest example of unity in practice, then this is essential that we get this to our people and absorb it for ourselves.
So let me ask you, have community centers connected with you all? You know what I mean? Where as community centers in different towns and so forth throughout, Illinois and Indiana, any other state, have they connected with you all so that you can bring this knowledge to the children so they can get to that point?
Is that most organizations with a 501c3,
yes,
right? That's non-for-profit, charitable, right? They can get money from people, and they don't have to pay taxes on that money because it's a donation, right? They have their own plans on what they think ought to be done. We're making an effort now to reach out to all the schools, all the institutions, all the organizations. So I'm not going to pass the buck and say it's all their fault. We have the responsibility as the Universal Negro Improvement Association to reach out. But we had that stain of criminality hanging over our head, right? Because they had framed Marcus Garvey, convicted him, and imprisoned him. And a lot of people were out there thinking that's who he was, that he was a criminal. So this pardon is going a long ways to open up doors for conversations about not only that the man was honest and wouldn't steal a penny from a person, but that here are some of the things that he did. He did a whole lot of things, and we want to educate our people about it. So we're ready now. All of us around the world, we're ready now to take the message of Marcus Garvey to the people. Look at these. Now, this is one newspaper, but there's a couple in Chicago that have taken the article and put it in their paper, and they want more information. So we got media saying they want information, and they'll print, and it'll go to 400,000 people. And then there'll be other institutions that will open up their doors and allow us to come in and educate our people, especially the schools. But we have to put forward the effort as well.
All right, let me open up the phone line so that, if you want to ask Mr. Shaka, Barak, any questions and so forth, the number is 708-223-8953. Once again, that is 708-223-8953. Or everybody, and y'all probably already know as usual, you can hit us up on Facebook Live. Tim, go ahead with your question, brother.
Okay, I had another question about Marcus Garvey's idea of separatism. Why did he feel that it was so important for the separation of races?
Because nobody was coming to help the Black man and the Black woman. They had to do for themselves. And as long as you're clear that you have to do for yourself, then just do it. Don't pretend and don't get faked out thinking somebody's coming to your aid. They may come to use you, but they're not coming to your aid. If the white man has a decision to make about your child eating and his child eating, guess who's going to eat?
His child.
His child.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a reality around how other races feel about themselves and about their survival. Um, the Chinese were saying, "Hey, China for the Chinese, France for the French." I mean, everybody was saying it except us. We thought France for the French and for the black man.
Yeah.
And they're like, no. I mean, look what they did to Haiti, right? They told Haiti, you got to continue to pay us because when you became independent, we lost that hustle and we want that money back. And for millions of dollars forever that Haitians had to pay the French. In Africa, it's the same thing, that the former French colonies, France is trying to hold on to those colonies under neocolonialism. And so fortunately, you have people like Ibrahim Traore down in Burkina Faso who's saying, hey, you're not taking our gold out of here anymore. We're going to process our gold. We're going to process all the things that we need for ourselves. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Do for self. It's an honorable thing because that's what others will do. And if you think you can depend on others, you're leaning on a broken stick and it's going to crumble and fall.
I just feel disheartened sometimes when it seems like the other side kind of won in the marketing department when it comes to like what's important, right? You say family is important, but these days it's like money is the only thing that is important, what I can get for myself. And I know that it is definitely better to feel like you're in it with a community of people, that no matter how much money you have, there's no security in being by yourself. But it is total security if you have, say, a continent behind you, you have support in the country that you live in. So I just feel like sometimes I feel like the other side has won this battle. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And you remember they've been practicing this for a long time. Do you know what they were willing to do, that is white people or the Caucasians, in order to keep us enslaved? Do you know how horrible they acted and behaved?
Yeah.
And now you say, well, how about some reparations? How about helping us to repair? And do you know what kind of pushback is being put out there in reference to reparations? They don't want to give up anything. I didn't do it. Don't put that on me. So the help is not coming. They're not riding in on the white horse. The white man is not coming in to do that for us, nor are the Chinese, nor are the Asians. We're on our own. And the sooner we make up our mind that we're on our own, we'll be okay. Because if we take the attitude that we're going to control our community economically, as Malcolm said, control the dollars in our community so they circulate among our people, control the politics in our community. If you're the majority in the community, then the elected official ought to be looking like you. Control the educational institutions. Why are we so happy and interested in white people teaching our children when they're not going to teach them about the Marcus Garvey? They're not going to teach them how to be self-reliant. What experience did Malcolm have when he was in the classroom and he said he wanted to be a lawyer? Say that's not for you.
Right. I remember that.
And that's what they say all the time to our children. That's not for you. Independence and self-reliance is not for you. If you get a job sweeping the street, you'll be okay. If you get a job in a restaurant, you'll be okay. But my question is, if we build a relationship with Mother Africa, how about them diamonds? Can we sell diamonds? Can we sell gold?
Right.
I mean, what about those products that are needed to make this cell phone work? We got it in Africa.
That's
Can we
why
sell
you got
that?
the trouble in Congo right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's got to happen is the African at home, in Africa and abroad, has got to get together. We can come together and use our expertise, our skills. I mean, it's like they've already asked on many occasions under the African Union to give them a list of your engineers, your doctors, your lawyers, so that whenever they need something built, rather than calling on the Chinese, they could call on the African in America. Yeah. And we could make that money. We could build those relationships, and we are. But sometimes the game of divide and conquer is so well put together that it makes us think that we can't unite. But in 2019, that was called the year of return. It was like 400 years, right? And Ghana was saying, come home. And even now, there are relationships with African countries where brothers and sisters have went back. That some, for the most part, have went there to retire. But those who are in business will be looking for opportunities that they can, make some money and then come back and share it and say, hey, you want to buy some land, you want to. So opportunities in Africa are growing by leaps and bounds, especially as the African begins to take control of their own destiny.
Do you believe, or do you know of any type of leader that we have out there today with Marcus's type of charisma and so forth? Because just off of what you just said, he sparked that Back to Africa movement where people got to that point and was trying to connect with the motherland. You understand what I'm saying? And like I was saying earlier, people have kind of went away from that. Is there a leader out there with somewhat similar of that type of charisma and so forth that he had that would bring people to think and look towards Africa instead of looking towards sometimes just how you spoke about France and all that?
It won't come because a person is charismatic. It will come with a plan and a blueprint on how to get it done. So there's not a whole lot of people yet who have really dug into the history of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey and his organization, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. So as we begin to and continue to organize, we'll find those men and women who will organize division by division. This is how that works. Let's say you live out in Aurora.
Yeah.
Okay. You live in Aurora, and we would say, okay, let's start a division out there. And you can build that division up into thousands of members. But you first need to start with 7 intelligent people. Because in order to get through philosophy and opinions and to get through the Constitution, you got to have people that's sharp. Mm-hmm. Because this is big. It's big business. Where do you stand now?
I'm in Aurora as well.
That's the same thing. We need men and women who are ready to start organizing, and we'll provide the material that they'll need to study, to organize, and we'll give them the support. But we're looking for those men and women around the world who are really ready to go to work, who are tired of our children involved with crime, involved with carjacking, and so forth and so on. And the only way that's going to stop is if we stop it. We can't depend on the United States government to bring in the National Guard to shut our community down, because the National Guard is a military operation. And what do? They like to fire them big old tanks. Yes. They like to bring them Jeeps in and bring them automatic weapons in to kill people that don't go along with what it is they want them to do. No, we, out of love for our people, the young guy, he doesn't understand how to get out the dope game. And so we can't, blame everything on him. The guns, they don't know how to put them guns down. The guns come from, the Uzi comes from Israel. The AK-47 comes from Russia. But they're down there on 63rd Street in Chicago. They're out in Argyle Gardens in Chicago. They're in Compton. They're in Philadelphia. How did they get there? Well, they didn't get there through us, because we don't manufacture. My cousin's not, his name isn't Glock or Smith & Wesson. Right. And it's the same thing with this proliferation of drugs. We don't fly that stuff in. So what is happening? Somebody sees that they can make a profit by exploiting our community and taking advantage of our youth. Let's go to our youth and give them a comprehensive program that eventually will take them out of the street and then have a healthier lifestyle so that they can take care of themselves. And if they've made some babies, take care of their babies. I mean, how many young people run around? Some of these brothers run around, they got 20 babies.
Yeah.
and proud of it.
Way too
Yeah.
many. Yeah.
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 But they're not taking care of the babies because they don't have a relationship with men like you and myself where we're saying, hey, we don't live like that. We don't produce these children and don't take care of them. So there's not the type of relationship that they need so that they can be around strong men and strong women. Some of these sisters are just as lost as some of these men, young men are, because the women are not interacting with them enough to help them grow into the type of a man or woman that we want them to become. And then with the brother leaving the house, it happened during the days, early welfare days, where they said, if you have a man in the house, you can't get this check.
Right.
And he got to go. And so we've been, hiding and ducking our responsibility so she could get that check. And so now we have to revisit this idea and say, well, we need to be with our woman. She need us and we need her. So right now she's one of the strongest elements in the community. It ain't the black man.
Right.
And so we can't be jealous of her because she's strong. We got to get with her and say, hey, let's do this together. Let's work together. Let's raise these children together. Let's solve our problems together. And if you get the black woman in your corner, oh man, she's a warrior. No doubt about it.
Agreed.
She's our queen and we're going to stay with her no matter what.
Agreed. Sir.
Kick his butt, sis. If he's out of line, tell him.
Yes, no doubt. Go ahead. Tell me any more questions.
Yeah. So I'm not a Christian myself.
Okay.
All right. And I'm not Islam. I'm not Muslim.
Right.
So I don't know what religion you are, but in America, it seems like there's a big conflict in culture with African nations, right? Maybe that's one of the reasons why we can't communicate with each other.
You mean communicate with Africans?
I think that if you're a Christian and you're African American in this country, right, it's you have internalized certain things, right? Certain things that may make you.
Yeah, but Tim, you got to realize that on the continent of Africa, Christianity is growing. Man, they got some institutions. They got churches with 45,000.
So is that a good thing, though?
Oh, 45,000 people that has the possibility of doing a whole lot of things. You could buy a whole lot of real estate with that. But here's the thing. If you don't believe in Islam and you don't believe in Christianity, whatever you believe in, get organized. Because it ain't enough to just say you ain't a Christian, you ain't a Muslim, but what are you? And then what are you doing? Because you can't sit back and do nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because even if you're an agnostic or atheist, you can organize. Just organize our agnostics. They're out there, organize atheists, and then go get some of this land. Because as Malcolm said, the basis of the freedom movements has been about land. So an atheist can't think about land. An agnostic can't think about land and wealth and control of their own destiny. Yeah, no matter what your religion is, you can think in such a way that you can improve your condition. You can have ambition and a desire that's not based on Christianity or based on Islam. It's based on what's inside of you, black man. What do you want from this planet? Mind creates. And whatever you want in nature, you can have through the creation of your own mind. So it ain't got to be linked up with none of these different religious groups. Just make sure that it's your purpose, that you're fulfilling your purpose, and go after it. Whatever it is, go after it. Go after it. I mean, wealth has no color. You can go and get wealth. You can fish it. You can farm it. You can get it through sales. You can get it through real estate. I mean, it's just so many different ways that you can create wealth, no matter what your religion is. Sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with it. Sometimes it might even hold you back because, you wait on God to give you what you need as opposed to going out there to get it. Right. So, yeah, I understand. But that's not a dilemma. You still have the responsibility of being a man, no matter what it is that you believe. Believe that manhood is important, and that the things that you want out of this world, you're going to get them no matter what, or as Malcolm would say, by any means necessary.
Exactly.
I like that.
All right, let me throw this at you. We all see the environment we're in, especially after a certain person got in the White House. Okay? If Marcus was here right now, what do you feel would be his thoughts in guiding the people? Because and I've seen it all through the social media where a lot of times people are like, what do I do now? Because the craziness that's coming from over there in DC, what do I do? How would Marcus possibly guide the people to at least have a little peace within themselves?
Well, he would do the same thing that he did back in 1920s and 30s, and that is to tell the people to keep with the program, to stay on the program. I mean, Trump is in office; he'll be there for 4 years, and then what? You know. So, I mean, he was in office, he got out of office, now he's back in office. Trump is not the issue. The issue is, what is it that the black man and the black woman want that they're willing to go and get what by any means necessary? Don't worry about Trump. Worry about these white folks. That's the problem. Sometimes we love them so much, we depend on them so much, we're waiting on them to save us. And then another time we hate them so much because they treat us so bad, they talk about us so bad until we just wish that, you know, they fall off the cliff somewhere. You know, you've heard people say, you know, what if we didn't have white people? But that's not the answer. The answer is within. What do we do as a race for ourselves? And so that's why it's becoming so confusing to our people, because they don't know what to do.
Yes.
And they wouldn't know what to do if Clinton came back to the White House. You know, they wouldn't know what to do if Biden had won.
Right.
You know, I mean, we didn't have a plan if Biden had won. We didn't have a plan if Carmela had won, right?
No.
We didn't have no plan. We
That's
didn't have
true.
a plan
That's
when,
true.
what's his name? Barak.
Oh, yes, Obama.
We didn't have a plan.
Yes.
No.
So he came into office and he went. Biden came and went. Kamala tried and she lost. Trump is in and he'll come and go. But what will we be doing? We can't be waiting to make our decisions based on who's in the White House. We have to have an independent thinking in terms of our race, getting the things that they need by any means necessary for themselves. So we ain't worried about Trump. We're not worried about a white savior coming in the White House to save us. It is up to us to save ourselves.
All right. Any more questions, Tim? All right, brother. Please give everybody the information to your institute and so forth, where they can contact you, they can connect with you. Because I'm asking everybody, and I'm not gonna lie, from all the 50 states, but at least give me the people from Ford Heights to Zion, Illinois, to at least contact, and let's grow and let's build. Please, sir, give them your contact information.
I'd be happy to. Again, my name is Shaka Barak. I'm the president of the Marcus Garvey Institute. I'm also the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, first vice president of Division 429 here in Chicago. If you want to reach me, you can call me directly, 312-391-8383, 312-391-8383. Also, you can email me at Shaka Barak1, numeral 1, at yahoo.com. I'll spell it SHAKABARAK1 at yahoo.com. I'd be happy to talk with anybody that's interested in knowing more about the life and the works of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. We have a traveling exhibit, and we'll bring that to your institution, to your church, to your mosque, to your temple, or wherever you meet, and help educate the people there about his life and works, and do it expeditiously, because we don't have a whole lot of time, and it has nothing to do with who's in the White House. It just has to do with, why waste the time? Let's go ahead and use the time. Get this knowledge on how to build, or how the first and largest mass movement was built, and then duplicate. Because the Pardon Marcus Garvey said, whatever man has done, man can do. Whatever woman has done, a woman can do. So there's nobody superior to us. So whatever anybody has done, we can do. And I want to work with you to show you how this movement was built. And let's work together to build another one.
All right, folks, you heard it. You heard it. I hope you got all the information down. I truly do. Sir, Mr. Shaka Barak, we thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
I mean, it definitely has.
Right.
And we hope that you would come back. You know, we can chop it up with anything and everything. All right. If it's gonna build the people, let's get together. Let's do this again.
Let's do that.
Yes, sir.
I'd be happy
Yes,
to
sir.
come
I appreciate it. Definitely. I'm your boy Abdul Rashid, along with Mr. Timothy Evans, and our two other members will be back next week. That's right, Big E from the D and the boss man Mike B, baby. We'll catch y'all next week. Elevated Vibes. Peace.